Welcome to Dan Excelsior, the mostly Marvel podcast. This is episode 136. We're on the final stretch of X-Men movies to cover before Deadpool 3. We're talking about Logan today. I'm Ricky. Of course, with us, as always, is Dennis.
What's
How's it
up?
going? What's up?
We have 2 more movies to go.
2? Well, 3
Only
technically,
because
but we've already done 1.
Only because of that asterisk we keep putting on there at every episode. We're like, we already did New Mutants. It's in the playlist. You guys can go watch it whenever you want.
Yeah. I think that's one of our more watched, most watched episodes. Most, honestly, as in it has 10 more than the other ones.
I'm just gonna say this: like, whatever show we do after Dark Phoenix, I'm still gonna watch New Mutants anyways, just because I feel like I like that movie. It's better than most people believe it is. So.
Okay. Well, I think you have to kick Deadpool out of the equation, but of the 3 remaining movies, is New Mutants the best one for you?
Well, I'll save that for later.
All right.
Save. You're trying to put the cart before the horse.
I am.
We're gonna talk about Logan today, and I got to save some content for later. This
we have a guest today that is a friend from work for me, and I kind of loosely explain the show at work. I don't like to talk about it per se as much because I don't know if I want people at work to see this yet. I mean, it might happen after this episode. We'll find out. But our guest, Abel, kind of led the conversation talking about Logan before I brought up the show. And then it's like, man, how serendipitous. So without further ado, let's bring on Abel.
Welcome.
What's up, guys?
How's it going? So we just met only a few minutes earlier, and I'm gonna be honest, I got a bad vibe. No, I'm just kidding. No, like I was holding back some questions because I wanted to save them for the show. But like, you're on the we call it the Mostly Marvel podcast. It's because we're Marvel fanboys here, and so I just wanted to give you a chance that we give every person who's new to the show, and just kind of let us know, like, and let the audience know, like, what does Marvel mean to you? Like, what was that for you growing up, or when did you find it? Mm-hmm. Let us know about you.
So Marvel actually plays a very huge part in my life since I was a little kid. Growing up, before I even actually started touching the comics, I was watching a lot of movies with my dad. I would frequently go to the theater with him. My dad was also a huge movie buff. Every time there's something out, he would take me. And I remember watching X-Men 2 in theaters when I was a kid. And so much about that movie spoke to me that it kind of started this like rabbit hole journey for me with Marvel and the X-Men. And I've been able to branch out to Avengers and this and that, but nothing is as close or as personal to me as the X-Men. Like, those are my diehards. Like, if you're going to do Avengers versus X-Men movie, I'm going to say Team X-Men all the way. I even have a Mystique tattoo of Rebecca Romijn right here.
Nice. That's the only Mystique, just so you know.
Yeah. I have an interesting story that I kind of touched a little bit with Ricky about my interaction with Simon David Kinberg, who's been a longtime producer for the X-Men films, and was the director for Dark Phoenix. Story about that, but we can get to that later.
So you punched him, right? Is what you're saying? You punched him in the face? I hate that guy.
He was able to bring closure to me, actually, because it was an opportunity to talk to him, and he answered a lot of questions that I had.
That's cool. Yeah, I unfortunately see that guy name on so many movies that I dislike that I can't even forgive him for the ones that I do like, because it's like, man, I feel like there's a common denominator here with these movies. But it's cool,
I don't want to speak on Dark Phoenix. I have not. That is the one superhero movie I have not seen. I just totally missed it for whatever reason. I did COVID. I went to a drive-in to go watch New Mutants, and I couldn't bring myself to watch Dark Phoenix when that came out. So.
Dark Phoenix came out before New Mutants, though, right?
Oh, it
Yeah.
did, didn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Mhm.
Yeah, it did.
Shows how much I know.
I'm excited for that in 2 weeks because, woof, that's a that's a that's a special one. But that's cool. You know, like I appreciate unsurprisingly, a majority of the people that come on this show to tell us about their their first introduction into Marvel. It's often X-Men, you know,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I think it's cool that X2 is yours. It gives us a good idea of your age. But you know, the funny thing is like no matter what generation it is, it's usually X-Men. You know, like for a lot of the older people that we have on the show, it's
Yeah.
the original X-Men cartoon. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Or like I know even older people that it's like the original like Stan Lee comics and stuff like that. And so, but it's always X-Men, and I think it's because sorry, it's not always X-Men. We had like one guy that was like way into the Hulk, and I'm like, I'm a little uncomfortable. I'm a little
Mhm.
uncomfortable with that. Like, but
Yeah.
but it's cool. Like, you know, and then I have a good group of Spider-Man fans, and
Mhm.
I think for me it's always been Spider-Man first, X-Men second, and I think the primary reason is only because of the sheer numbers and people to keep track of. Like, it's like I
Yeah.
can keep track of Spider-Man's story so much easier than the soap opera that is the X-Men. But if you take that element away, I think the X-Men story is just so intrinsic to like what makes growing up hard, right? It's the feeling of not being accepted or being alone or not
Yeah.
or maybe, you know, wondering if people are going to accept you for who you are. And so I think that there's a lot of themes going on in X-Men that were never sugar coated.
Yeah.
They're very heavy, and I think it's when you're a child seeing that represented in this magical way, like with people with superpowers and stuff like that,
Mhm.
right? It's how can you not fall in love with that,
It's a
right?
cool way to express thoughts and feelings like when you're younger, when you're dealing with complex stuff like that, and you don't really know how to feel.
Yeah,
And I
Mhm.
think the X-Men does a good job of like showing people like this is part of life. You know, this is part of your unique struggle is you know, it's something everyone goes through
yeah,
when
Well,
they come find out.
ultimately, it's always been about like the disenfranchised masses. You know, it's like the ones who aren't heard, the ones who are put in the back or not considered valuable to like mainstream society.
yeah.
And funny enough, like the biggest reason why I got this Rebecca Romaine Mystique tattoo was not just because I found this like sick portrait artist in my hometown, but when I was in the theater watching X-Men 2, the
I know
one
where it is. I
scene
know what it
that
is.
stuck out to me where I was like little preteen boy just like whoa like crazy was when Mystique is watching Logan and Jean do their thing and Nightcrawler walks up and says like um they can say you can imitate anyone even the voice and she's like even the voice and she starts going into like well we can do that why not stay in disguise all the time and all she said was because we shouldn't have to
Shouldn't have to.
and I
Yep.
was like, "Oh my god, like, this woman, like, take my money, take everything." I was so, like it spoke
Mutant and
volumes.
It feel,
proud.
does this not feel like deja vu right now, Ricky?
Uh,
Was I not gushing over the exact same scene
we
about
have a whole very popular clip you can catch on our YouTube channel about that.
uh,
About that
um
exact moment.
it's my favorite scene in that movie, and honestly, you know, like I'm not saying this for you. I've been saying this on this whole run. X2 is my favorite X-Men movie. It just is
Same.
because like, and I also said this, you know, a few couple months back, like I think on the rewatch of these movies, Mystique became my favorite character in these movies because um she does so much with so little, like
Mhm.
so few scenes, so few lines, but the impact of her lines and her scenes are amazing. Like just even her action, the action she does in all those movies is
Oh, she has
so
the coolest
coolest
takedowns, coolest fights.
Oh,
coolest
yeah.
fights, and she always does it with like this cool like coy smile on her face,
Yeah.
like it's effortless for her, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and she's been Magneto's right-hand man forever, right? She's been just doing this, like fighting the good fight for as long as you can remember. And that's why I hate J Law's version of Mystique so much, because it's like, what is this Mystique? This is not the cool
I think
Mystique.
she tried to put like some effort into it in the beginning in First Class when she like before like her popularity, but then she grew up and then she figured that she was above the X-Men now, and that's what I didn't like, was that she just gave up on it.
Like, we got you for 3 movies.
But
I wouldn't nowhere.
I wouldn't even blame just her. I kind of blame the people in charge of those movies too, because they were writing her intentionally to be super different from the one that Rebecca Romijn was. You know what I mean? Like, because there's a divergence, right? Where like after Days of Future Past, time is different. So now the events can play out differently, right? Like Logan suddenly has his metal claws now in the movie we're going to talk about later today, because of time shenanigans. Phoenix is alive again. Like all these things are different, but for some reason also all the things are different in the prequel franchise too. And so now Mystique gets to be an X-Man, and she gets to, and we get to have a whole team of X-Men before the team of X-Men. And like, it's just, it doesn't do it for me. And so, you win a lot of points, because like, honestly, one of the things that Ricky and I first started like nerding out about is one of his favorite childhood movies was, he loves the Star Wars prequels.
The greatest, some of the greatest movies.
And because that's what he grew up with. And I just can't tolerate that opinion. Those are terrible movies. So it's cool to know that you grew up on some good movies. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. Like, I appreciate that. I don't want to ask you about your opinions of the prequel trilogy though. So we'll just
avoid that.
Let's just stay off that topic. But that's cool. I dig that. Like, X2. The other thing, I was actually just having this conversation with our old friend of the show, Frank, the other day about X2 and why I think it's the best one. Or really, it's just like it's all downhill after X2, and it's because there was so many promises given in that movie. Like we were given a second villain for the first, like for this franchise. We're like, oh, okay, Stryker's not nearly as scary necessarily as Magneto. But now I'm given hope that we could have more villains besides Magneto and Stryker in the movies that come, and and still his motivations are based on pure hatred, right? Like he hates himself so much for giving birth, or for creating a child that's different, like and who can't relate to that, like on some level, is like not being accepted by your own father. Like, that's disgusting, and it's a reality in this world. And so, and then like Lady Deathstrike, she might have been another stabby villain, but she was a cool stabby villain, you know what I mean? Like, and so unfortunately what happens is, after that movie, the writers keep giving us stabby villains for Wolverine, and they just keep using Magneto and Stryker for every movie afterwards. And it's like, stop using Magneto and Stryker. It's too much.
Well, actually, some of the closure that I was able to get from Kinberg was in regards to that. So basically what happened was, a long time ago, not too long, I used to have this Tumblr account called
very different.
Very different. And my name was J Kerr, JKEERR. It's like a play on Joker. And I used to just post a bunch of just random art stuff, but a lot of X-Men things too. I would reblog a lot of Dark Phoenix things and Jean Grey things. So that's actually my all-time favorite X-Men character is Jean Grey, is Dark Phoenix. I have a huge Phoenix tattoo on my chest. So since I was posting a lot of that stuff, I had this Emma Stone fan page reach out to me and be like, hey, I noticed that you're like that you post a lot of things about the X-Men and about Jean Grey. I'm actually the art director or director of photography for the Dark Phoenix film, and we're going to have a pre-screening in 20th Century Fox Studios. And she invited me. And a lot of red flags came up. I was like, this is a stranger on the internet. They're trying to get me to go out
Wire
to LA.
me $50, please.
Yeah. So I was just kind of like, going about it with caution. And then eventually I gave her my personal email, and she sent me the invitation, and it had like the 20th Century Fox, everything on it. I was like, okay, so this kind of looks legit. And she said I can bring a +1. So I took my sister. I remember we're driving to LA. We catch traffic as one does in freaking LA. And I'm like, holy crap, I think I'm going to be late to this viewing. So maybe they're just going to go on without me, blah, blah, blah. So she did give me her phone number the day prior. So I gave her a call. I was like, hey, we're stuck in traffic. I understand if you guys have to get started, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, no, we're going to wait for you. Like, don't worry about it. So I was like, oh,
Okay.
wow. So we get to the studio, show the email to the security guard. He lets us in. We park like in the visitor area, and we just start walking into the studios. And it's like 8 at night. It's kind of dark, and it's me and my sister. And she's like, I call the girl, and she's like, where you guys at? I can pick you up in the golf cart. And she rolls up, she finds us, and she looks at me and my sister. She's like, oh, you guys are kind of cute. So I told my sister, I was like, oh, we're getting sacrificed to the Illuminati right now for sure. Like, we're gonna get killed. And then they drive us to this room. We had to sign like the NDA, obviously, before going to go see it. A lot of the producers were there, and there were other invited guests to watch the movie. And we saw the whole thing. Obviously, it wasn't, it was still in post-production. So there was a lot of the things that say, in this scene, Jean Grey will do this and that, right? But they just wanted to get feedback on the story. So after the movie played out, we hung around for like another like half hour talking to everybody because they wanted the feedback. And when I got the chance to meet Kinberg, I showed him my Mystique tattoo, and he took a picture of it, and he said like, I'm gonna send this to Jennifer Lawrence. And I was like, this isn't like, this is Wreck Remain. He's like, oh, I know. I'm letting her know that no one likes your Mystique. I was like, oh. I was like, oh, okay. But I used that opportunity to ask him like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm diehard X-Men fan. X-Men 1, you guys laid like the foundation for Jean Grey's mental capacity to enter, the Phoenix realm. And X2 was obviously just this whole buildup for Jean Grey's story of like her unleashed powers, the fire eyes, everything, ready for that. So I was like, what happened with X-Men 3? Like she got the B plot, and it was like overall,
Bryan Singer left.
yeah, and Bryan Singer left. He went Superman versus like X-Men.
Yeah.
And Simon Kinberg told me that so they had a script for X-Men 3 completely based around Dark Phoenix. Basically, the X-Men were just trying to help, contain law in New York City, help out, do crime stuff. But they're starting to get reports of destruction in random cities in town, and whole cities disappearing. Basically, the Phoenix came out of the water like we saw at the end of X2, and she just went on this rampage destroying things. So the whole story was about her and her mental battle with the Phoenix,
and not about the cure. Not about
the cure. Magneto was going to team up with the X-Men to help subdue Jean Grey, and they had a script. They showed it to Famke Janssen, the original Jean Grey actress, and she was on board. She loved it. She began her research on like how to go about like this very distraught character. And then he said that they had everything kind of virtually ready, and then they presented it to the Fox executives, and they said, no one's going to watch a movie with a female-led hero. So they said, put Magneto and Wolverine in the forefront, and then we'll talk about it. So they had to rewrite the entire thing with this whole cure plot and put Phoenix's story on the backside just to be approved by the studios.
Didn't they have to trick Halle Berry to get back into this too, right? Or that too?
They did. They tricked her in that one too. Yeah. But here's the thing. Like, it's really easy to like point fingers and say, yeah, so this is why that movie was bad. But then when he was done saying that, did he like say, okay, so then why is this one bad?
It's left it at that, and yeah. I feel like he got it from my vibe where I'm like, what happened here, bro? Like,
yeah, because let's be honest, right? Like, so my roommate, like my college roommate, like I lived with that guy for like years and years and years. He's the only other person I know besides you. Phoenix is his favorite character ever. And so, like, I've always been a Spider-Man fan, and I've always been he's always been a Jean Grey fan. And I've always just felt so bad for him because I have been treated to like so many movies that I can be really nitpicky about them, right? Like I have, like, I can like list like my top 10 Spider-Man movies, dude. You know what I mean? Like, and meanwhile, every time it gets time for the Phoenix, they just shit the bed, and it's so bad.
It's wild that they took 2 cracks at it, and like in
2
give
cracks.
or take 10 years or more or less. Like,
and
that's insane.
I was so hopeful because the original stuff that came out, the original art and poster art, was her whole like flame form, cosmic entity type thing. But I don't know what the hell happened, and suddenly she's back in a trench coat, and like X-Men 3. So a lot of the Dark Phoenix things like had X-Men 3 factors in it. It's like they didn't learn from that failure, you know?
It's so weird that they wouldn't learn from that movie, because that movie, they worked so hard to erase the events of that movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of the whole point of Days of Future Past, is just like, let's forget that happened. You know what I mean? Like, so it's fine. You know, I don't want to ruin this conversation for Ricky, because he's got to see this movie for the first time in 2 weeks, and it's going to be
I've seen the train scene sequence, part of the train, and it was cool.
It's cool.
Trains are cool.
Why don't we switch gears? This is a fun talk. I can't wait to talk more about Logan. But Ricky, I'm assuming you've got some stuff for us to talk about.
I got a little bit of news. Let's do it. Before this, I didn't want to bring a slide into it because it's still kind of rumory, but it was coming around that Taylor Swift had a Feige meeting, and apparently they're eyeing her to play the Blonde Phantom. I have no idea who the Blonde Phantom is.
Taylor Swift?
Yes.
Oh, I thought Taylor Swift is rumored to be Dazzler.
That's what I heard too.
The internet, she could be both. Who knows? But confirmed news story coming out of the Hollywood Reporter. The Vision Quest show, the Vision series that's kind of been floating around, that's happening in 2026 with Paul Bettany, of course, coming back. Being showrun by Terry, what is it? Matalas. From Picard, from Star Trek Picard. That's cool.
Not hopeful. Picard is trash. Like, that show is so bad compared to what the Next Generation was. But I do. Here's the thing. Marvel is like run by committee, right? So like, this might be the guy they put the name on the front of it, but like, it'll be better than Picard, I'm sure. That's all I'm saying. But that's not your selling point. The guy who was in charge of Picard.
The guy in charge of Picard
is not the selling point.
I make it a point to go to that Comic-Con panel every year.
Paul Bettany is the selling point for this, right? Like, he has never let me down as Vision. I am quite excited to see a Vision story that doesn't revolve around the Scarlet Witch. So that would be kind of cool.
Does he stay white in the comics?
No, I mean, it's just like, it's a look. It's just
like a period. It's like a phase. It's nothing that stays permanent.
Yeah, it's just, Vision's got different costumes. Everybody's got different costumes. So it's white is just like his proto form, like, it's kind of like an infancy kind of. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Marvel's just always trying to get us all the different costumes. So he'll probably look green again and red and yellow and red by the end of it.
Another thing in its infancy, about to get going. The X-Men movie. The X-Men movie is getting Michael Leslie as the screenwriter. He is probably best known recently for the Hunger Games, Songbirds,
it's a prequel movie, right?
The Hungerbirds, Ballad of Songbirds, Snakes. He did the second Now You See Me, which I kind of like. Those movies are fun.
I've heard the Songbirds and Snakes is actually really good.
It is a really good movie.
I don't watch those movies, but I've heard it's a good one. So I'm so excited that
this man has the biggest shoes to fill.
Dude, the biggest. We've already talked about this for the last 10 weeks, right? Or 9 weeks. Like, with X-Men 97, you have onboarded an entire new generation of X-Men fans. And now your responsibility is to appease them and the old ones who also still love this show. Like, it's.
Well, let me throw it out there then, because there's
person.
also that rumor that this is it's not an X-Men movie per se, but a mutants movie. Would you start there, or would you start with the X-Men?
Well, I heard a rumor that the first X movie they're thinking of putting out won't even be the original X-Men team, like Jean, Scott, Iceman, Beast, Angel. They were thinking more of the newer X-Men, like Storm, Wolverine, Jubilee, more of those, and not yet quite focus on the ones that we've had before. And their reasoning behind it, supposedly, this is a rumor, is because they think that society is kind of saturated with the original team, and they want to start with something more fresh. But again, like if they're gonna go with Wolverine, it's kind of the same thing as last time, you know.
I don't mind them doing a newer team. Like I mean, like
Are they
that's literally how X-Men the original cartoon started, right? Is like, hey, we're not even gonna talk about the original team for like a while. Like, but eventually, because it's not an origin, right? That story just, it's like a soap opera. It just drops you in the middle, and and if you trust them, eventually they will give you the backstory. And I'm fine with that. I don't want origin stories. You know, I hate them. Like at this
Yeah.
point, the MCU has outgrown origin stories. It's just like they're the worst parts of the MCU now, because like
Yeah.
we went so big in scale with like Infinity War and Endgame and No Way Home and like with these giant team up movies that like when you dip back into like a,
it makes them
hey,
feel isolated, like
they
very
do. They feel
isolated.
isolated, and the X-Men has to feel the opposite of isolated. You have to do a good job of explaining why people suddenly hate all of these people that are born with powers while still idolizing the Avengers and Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. You know what I mean? That's a
Yeah.
very complicated, weird thing. Like, and it's like you got to make it very clear, like why does a mutant get persecuted while the Hulk gets to be a champion of the people?
Well, that's like where that whole Cyclops is right phrase comes from. Like when they did the Avengers versus X-Men comics, and they were trying to subdue the Phoenix again, and through Rachel Summers, and you
Yeah,
have, you know, America's top cop, Captain America, going to
Mhm.
Genosha and telling the mutants like, or trying to lay down the law, or whatever. And Cyclops is flat out just like, bro, we have robots that are targeting our kind, and where the fuck are the Avengers? Like they're never around. They're never around for the Registration Act, for any of this. So why would we like even think about working with you when you guys don't give a damn about us? And they kind of touched on it a little bit in '97 too with Rogan, that Captain
Mhm.
America scene.
yeah.
in
But
in the comics are I saw a take on it that was explained. I don't know if it's true, but are most of the mutants in the comics more physically different, and the X-Men are the exception per se, that they look more
no,
human,
no, it's
and that's part of the reason why
it used to be
they're
really
persecuted.
that the Morlocks were the ones that were the strange looking ones, and
Mhm.
that's why they lived in the sewers. But it's just become like a proliferation of X-Men characters, so much so that like there's a lot of them that look weird now. But like I think
Yeah,
proportionately, the implication is always that there's more normal looking ones that are hiding in plain sight
Mhm.
than we're aware of. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And it's just the ones that look weird can't help looking weird, right? Like
yeah.
they just can't help it. Like Leech looks like Leech, man. That's not his fault, you know. Like he's just born that way and stuff. So,
Mhm. And I kind of like the
um,
social commentary on that because it kind of speaks on just like, obviously X-Men is meant to be representation for like the minority, LGBT groups, people of color, but even
mhm,
within our own, for me, like I'm a member of the LGBT community, um, LGBTQIA. It's interesting because even within our own community, there's still a lot of toxicity and hate within
yeah,
ourselves, and
Mhm.
that's kind of a talk on that. They do mention that in the comic books a bit, where it's like, I don't have a pretty mutation like Storm. She can fly and make pretty clouds. I
mhm,
have scaly skin like Mystique. So there's even that where they butt heads about being a type of mutant too. And you see it all the time in like the gay community too. Like if you on Grinder, they flat out put like no fats, no femmes, no Asians. It's like, how can we as a community go out and preach for equality when within
yep.
ourselves we tear each other down?
Yeah, I fully agree. Like I also see X-Men as a metaphor for ableism too, and disability, because like you know, I'm in a wheelchair. I have cerebral palsy, but I don't present it in the way that most people assume it's presented. So like I can pass, especially on camera, right? Like you can't tell that I have a disability. But like Cyclops for me was always my favorite X-Men, because and the movies have done him dirty, man, because the story never they always leave out the part where he actually existed on this planet. His childhood was as a blind boy, because it wasn't until he met Professor X, and Professor X figured out how his power worked and created these glasses that could contain his power, that he was
Mhm.
allowed to open his eyes again, right? And so
Yeah.
yeah, and so I feel like a lot of disabled people can also relate to a lot of X-Men, especially like Morlocks too. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like a lot of people are born physically different, and it's off-putting to society, right? Like Japan culturally tries to hide they're disabled in the homes and stuff like that. You know, they just don't really
Yeah.
want those people out and about and stuff like that. And so, you know, it's all over the world, these kind of things. So yeah, it's I also think Cyclops is the best X-Men because he's the one that pulled Jean Grey as his woman. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
she's the most like, I mean, I'm just
Bro,
saying.
Jean's got Logan, she's got Scott. Even Spider-Man said he had a crush on her. Like everyone who meets her is like, yo, who is this girl? Like,
But who married it? Who married her? I'm just saying.
God.
I'm
He
just
marries
saying.
her post Phoenix, right, or pre Phoenix?
Pre. Or
Okay.
wait.
No, it's
No.
it's posed because she goes through the whole Phoenix incident with the
Yeah.
crashing space shuttle, and then it's not until afterwards where they defeat it, or kind of she defeats it herself, that they get together.
Yeah. You're right. It's post Phoenix, but yeah. You got any more news, Ricky? Sorry.
I got one little bit. We love to talk about toys on the show, and we had a new toy come out or get announced this week. Your Hulkbuster. You said this is a redo on an older figure.
I got rid of that figure yesterday. Yeah, there was an old Toy Biz Hulkbuster. It was part of a Legendary Riders set of Marvel Legends before they started doing the Build-A-Figures. And I honestly, he was massive. He was a big single-carded Hulkbuster toy, but his proportions were just
This is a thick
absolutely
boy,
disgusting. And this one is Hasbro redoing this toy. And I think they're modernizing it. They're basing it off the designs of Adi Granov, who also designed Extremis, and he designed the original Iron Man suits for the movies and stuff like that. So you can see the DNA of movie Iron Man in this, but this is a comic book suit. Yeah.
The chest pieces swap out, right? That's kind of cool.
No, it's not that they
Right?
swap out. No, it's just not complete. Like they couldn't fit in the plastic bubble. So you're supposed to put one on you put one on top.
No, that's a triangle, and that's another triangle.
I know, but the one the one in the box goes on top of the other one.
Okay.
That's the undercarriage, basically, like the hood
It's
or under
sports
the hood.
bra.
Yeah, it's a sports bra. Got to go on top of it. But do you collect action figures, Abel?
I actually have a Marvel's Legends Phoenix one, and it comes with the I think it's Juggernaut's arm or his leg or something like that. I have it right here. It's his chest. So I have that one and some of no other figurines, but like Funko Pops and stuff like that. But not a huge collection.
Yeah. They've done a pretty decent amount of Jean Grey figures throughout the years. I have them all.
Are you a red suit guy? Or she's always in the red suit, or she's not in the green
dark
suit?
When she's dark, she's red suit.
Okay. Yeah.
When she's kind of in control.
Phoenix, she's green.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also been a version where she's in a white suit too.
And that's like the perfect Phoenix form where she's like in full unity with it. And we only got to see like that little bit in the comics. And I understand why, because that form is like OP. Like she had a moment where she was holding the entirety of the multiverse in her hands, and she had the choice of like crushing it to start over, which is like the Phoenix's purpose, like burn away what doesn't work and start anew. But she chose Scott, and she chose the X-Men over everything, and that's why she let the universe live.
Yeah, the Phoenix in the comics is kind of like her purpose is kind of like Thanos in the MCU, right? Like
it's a big reset button.
Because just to be clear, Thanos in the comics, it does not have this weird moral high ground that Josh Brolin's one does.
He's just a bad dude.
Thanos in the comics is a simp. He's just trying to impress Death, he has the hots for. And so he just wants to kill as many things ever so that he can bone down on Death. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's Thanos's deal in the comics. And they were like, yeah, let's not do that, you know? So, and I respect them for that, but they kind of tiptoed over the Phoenix's whole deal, you know, which is
Yeah.
bringing balance to life. Like so, life for there to be life, there must be death, and that's the cycle of the Phoenix. Yeah.
And one thing that maybe the MCU will pick up on if they ever decide to retackle the Phoenix story, but maybe they should spend some time off of it just so people can get refreshed and used to it again. One common thing that's always overlooked is, aside from the destruction that Phoenix does, is it also puts life where there isn't any. So it goes beyond just destroying worlds that it doesn't see useful anymore.
Yeah.
If it goes to like a solar system that's out of balance and it needs life, it'll like fill a planet full of life. And that's something that
the Phoenix is what corrected the Wanda's No More Mutants thing, correct? At the end of AVX, right?
Yes.
I think the Phoenix redistributed itself all over the planet or something, and it created mutants again on the planet.
And they were through. It was a Phoenix Force, but I believe it was through Rachel Summers. Or no, not Rachel. Hope Summers.
Hope Summers. Hope Summers. Yeah. All right, that was some fun nerdiness on that stuff.
I know you guys have been hard.
I know we went hard. I'm enjoying this. If you want to come back for Dark Phoenix for that shit show, you're welcome to. Just so you know.
Oh yeah, I got some thoughts on that too.
Yeah, but I'm ready for another shit show. Now,
oh my god,
it's not a shit show, but we can talk about Logan now.
Let's talk about Logan.
All right, I'm gonna put this out there right now. I've already said it multiple times on the show. I don't like Logan the way most people like Logan.
Oh my god!
Did the needle move at all?
No, it did not move. In fact, if
if
anything, the needle moved in the opposite direction.
My god, I like that more.
But can I caveat it? And I'm gonna say my piece right now, and then I'm gonna let you guys just gush over this movie for the rest of this time, right?
Okay.
There's two reasons fundamentally I don't like Logan, and it's unfortunate for me, but it's my circumstance. One, I said before, I worked at Sony. I worked on The Last of Us in, I think, 2012 when that game came out. I worked on The Last of Us. I played that game day in, day out. I was like in charge of doing speed runs on that game. I got force fed the story of The Last of Us with a spoon daily for months, right? So when I saw the trailer for Logan, I was like, well, that looks familiar. Like that looks really, really familiar. Like from top to bottom, that trailer was showing me The Last of Us, right? And the other thing that was jarring to me when I saw the movie is I also read Old Man Logan. Like I read it. I wouldn't even say I liked it that much. I thought it was cool. It was interesting. It's a little too zany for me. I think it's written by Mark Miller. Mark Miller is also the guy who wrote Kick-Ass. He wrote
for context, that's a very different story than what this is, though.
That's my point. It's so narratively different in every way possible that like I wasn't allowed to like this movie. And as a bonus, I do have a third reason. If this is going to be the final story for Wolverine, dude, there are a lot of good X-Men villains that he could have been fighting instead of himself. All right. That's dumb.
He's always been fighting himself. That's an analogy.
Now, that said, Patrick Stewart is phenomenal in this movie.
Okay, you're winning me back.
And I check out as soon as he dies. As soon as he dies, I don't care about the rest of the movie. I just don't. I don't. And there. Now I've said my piece. You guys can stay. You can fight me back, or you can just tell me what you love about this movie, because you're not going to win me over. You're not.
Go for Abel.
I'm pretty biased because I had a very, very strong emotional reaction to Logan, and I think it's just because of my connection with the original X-Men film and characters. Because when I saw that in theaters, I was bawling like a baby, because a part of me was like, not and Logan is great. He's not like my top favorite X-Men or anything. I just think he's like a cool character. But when he passed, and to me it's like them wrapping up that whole storyline and those original characters that started all of this, to me, because I grew up with them, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people can say the same, like it kind of feels like a part of your childhood died with
Mhm.
him. It's like now it's like, oh, we're done, and now it's time to face the new reality, new characters, and this part of my life is over. So I had this huge emotional reaction to that movie because of it. Not even necessarily again because it's Logan's death, but I was like the scene where Daphne Keene as X-23 puts the X up, that was completely intentional to be symbolic of the X-Men, the original X-Men of the films are dead. And I remember just taking it as just like, oh my God, it hurt. I got so attached to it and so emotional about it that I used to work at IHOP with my sister, and we were both at work, and she had made a comment about it, something like snarky, like, and now they're dead, so you got to deal with it. And I remember not talking to her for like 3 months. How bad it was. I was like, all right, lady, like, get out of my face before I swing. But that's how bad. That's how emotionally close I was to these characters.
I 100% agree with you. I think where I differ with Dennis on movie opinions is I do get emotional for the Hollywoodness of certain things, and that at the time being probably the last time we're seeing Patrick Stewart as Professor X and Logan
It wasn't though.
or I know, or Hugh
Logan.
Jackman as Wolverine. Again, to your point, that is your child. That's my Wolverine. Imagine if, like, I mean, granted, we've been to a few Batmans by now, but like, you know, it's that same sentiment because they've been doing it for so long. But watching it or going on the rewatch, I totally forgot about the Texas angle. So I grew up in South Texas, so that setting was very familiar and took me to a certain place. That's always a plus. But goddamn, Patrick Stewart, man. Kudos. I think kudos for them for writing putting him in such a vulnerable place with that character and really taking one of the best written comic book characters.
Stephen Merchant as Caliban was also amazing.
He's also great, but
taking someone down. They both die about the same point in the movie. So then I'm done. I'm done.
Like we see Captain America get old in Endgame, right? But we don't get to see everything else that maybe comes along with that. And
well, we saw them be old in Days of Future Past. Like we did, they aged them up in those movies.
Yeah, but being old and being old with with Alzheimer's is a very different thing.
Yeah,
and it's a very real thing.
And I thought the idea of Professor X with Alzheimer's is super cool. Do I think it's cool that Logan is the nanny? Debatable. I think that the message was a little muddled in that, like, I think the other reason I get cranky about the movie is like it got an Oscar nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, and I'm like, guys, the thing that it's adapted from is trash.
Isn't there a Baby Hulk in there?
But it's at least more. It's got more like pizzazz, I guess. It's got more interesting things going on. Like it's a like the problem I have with Logan is like, what is this future? It's just Texas. It's not even an apocalypse. You know what I mean? Like I always
Texas is an apocalypse.
No, but you know what I mean?
It had the Western filter, so it's
no, like I really like, so the comic actually really leans into the Western where it feels like an old Clint Eastwood movie or something, like kind of like Unforgiven or something, like where Logan has given up the claws. He no longer did you read the book, Abel? Yeah, where he's like, the whole point of the story is he refuses to be the Wolverine anymore. Like he will not pop the claws. Through the whole damn story, he doesn't pop the claws. He finds ways to kill people without the claws, but he just refuses to use the claws. And it's a crazy America that they have to navigate because it's a post-apocalyptic future where the super villains have conquered. They've killed off all the heroes. They've taken over the planet, the country, and divided it up, right? Like there used to be Abomination territory, but I guess Hulk came and killed him and he took it over. So it's like Hulk land. Then there's Dr. Doom, and then Kingpin has his own territory. And then there's like, and then, well, it's a different Kingpin, right? But they like, I think they like killed Dr. Doom or something like that. And then like Red Skull is over on the East Coast. And so it's just crazy. And like in the middle of America, somehow people imported like the dinosaurs from the Savage Land and let them roam free. So it's like full on Jurassic Park in the middle of America.
Like inbred Hulks too, right?
The Hulk raped She-Hulk and created a bunch of hillbilly Hulk children and grandchildren and stuff. it's super gross. It's super like it's all shock value. That's what Mark
That's
Miller does.
I would
That's
agree
Mark
with you on
Miller's.
that. I agree with you
Yeah.
on that like 100%. I much preferred personally the Logan film versus the Old Man Logan comic because it's like what you said. It just feels like it was edgy to be edgy. I never understood how Mysterio can get a one up on Logan and his senses. Like even if you tricked him
Well,
into illusions, it's like how do you still get him to
well,
like bypass his smell and
well. Mysterio doesn't just do like optical illusions. So like there's actually a really cool comic with a Daredevil comic written by Kevin Smith where Mysterio is just so tired of losing to Spider-Man that he decides to punch down, and he goes and picks on Daredevil and makes Daredevil believe that somebody has given him the Antichrist, a baby, to take care of.
It's a
And
Kevin Smith one, right?
yeah, and he has him visited by a demon and all these things. And you're like, well, it must be a real demon because Daredevil would be able to smell it or see
Mhm.
it, or, like, but it's all checked out. So like there's already a historical precedent for Mysterio being able to trick people's senses, like with
He
heightened
has
senses.
soaring over California
But
technology.
the thing Abel's referring to is you find out through the course of the story that the tragicness, the reason that Logan has stopped being Wolverine is because one night at the X Mansion, all the villains ever attacked the mansion, and Wolverine popped those claws and he murdered all of them. And only to find out when he was done killing them that it was actually an illusion, and Mysterio had tricked Logan into killing all of the X-Men. And so for me, okay, yeah, it's a lot of really craziness to it, but like I felt like there was so many tiny nods to that story in the movie, but they robbed Logan of them, right? So they
Mhm.
changed it so that Professor X was the one responsible for the deaths of the mutants, and they
Mhm.
made it so Wolverine had no problem popping those claws. He does it in the beginning of the movie, and I'm not saying it's not cool when he
Same.
murders a bunch of people jacking his car, but it's a little excessive to murder people jacking your car. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I
So
think that was just because like the studio finally got permission to go that R rating
Yeah,
and they said let's
and
cut things
it's
up.
it's the release. Like
but
you
see,
just need to see him chop an arm off.
and see, here's what I'm saying. Like though, every time I can come up, like I can come up with like story wise, like this doesn't make sense. You guys are gonna come back with, well, that's a studio decision, blah blah blah. And so yes, I do respect that from a Hollywood point of view. This movie got to do things differently than the previous ones. It got to put a bookend on a movie franchise and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, watching the character Wolverine go through this story, he's kind of just a passenger in this
He doesn't want to be there the whole time. I mean, he
right.
doesn't
Yeah.
That's
really
what
accept his
I
purpose till like
I
the very end.
I don't feel like he has a lot of agency in this movie, and it's kind of frustrating, like to watch, like and to so like I really love Professor X because he makes the plot go through the whole movie, like
Mhm.
and so it's frustrating when Professor X dies to a Wolverine clone. Like that's
I know.
it just hurts, you know what I mean? Like so yeah, I was sad in that moment in the theater. I
Mhm.
remember that hurt my feelings because I was like, this is how he's gonna go. And then a moment later, like Caliban pulls the grenades and I'm like, oh no, you're gone too. Like, come
Yeah.
on, man. And so then you're just stuck with these two people. And like, I'm not saying X-23 is not interesting, but like the reveal that she could speak, one, that she could speak was kind of what? But then the fact that like by the end of the movie she's just speaking English, I'm like, what is going on? What? Like, I'm not understanding what happened here. Like, why were you not speaking for this movie?
I mean, you can argue that it's
Well, she
probably
was
like it's trauma, It's like it's a
yeah.
kid who got subject to this crazy surgery and instantly forced to kill because she's told, and maybe she was told, you're just a weapon, don't speak, and she got that objective training on her, so that could be a reason why
And she's talking to Charles the whole time.
She's
telepathically,
talking
yeah.
Yeah.
in his head,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, which was a cool little nuance to think about. Like, I think one of the two of the coolest things that we got to see from Charles is one, and it makes sense. Language is no boundary for him. 2, he can speak to horses, dude. Like, I
Yeah.
was a little thrown off by that. I was like, he speaks to animals too?
If it's got a brain, he's in it.
That's I don't think I've ever seen him do that in the comics. And that's a little
Well,
that's a
he does
little
go like not with animals, but he's done it with like aliens and stuff.
aliens and stuff.
He can
Yeah,
scan them and you can tell they're different.
but we're getting into Aquaman territory here.
He
You know what I
doesn't
mean?
punch
Like,
down when it comes to mind, mind bending.
but I'm saying if he has the capability of controlling all animals too, that makes him even more powerful than we ever imagined. You know what I mean? So it was a little bit too big in the scale, so but it was
Yeah.
cool. It was cool. But I understand. I when you guys explain it, I get it. I totally get why this movie is so special to you. For me, I think it was, you got to remember the MCU was already like
we're already
cooking. It was
Avengers
cooking, right?
2
It was
at this point.
what year did this movie come out? Like, this is
2017. So the Guardians 2?
Yeah, Guardians
Yeah.
was 2016, wasn't it?
No, you might be right.
This movie was coming out after some seriously good movies on the other side of the grass, or whatever you want to call it. And so for me, I was like, can we kill this X-Men franchise? Can we be done with it? Because I think the wheels were already in motion. The whispers were already there that like Disney was considering buying Fox, right? Like it was like this was the deal was happening around this time. And so I'm like, can we make this happen faster, please? Because I want X-Men to be as awesome as this stuff.
You had Guardians 2, Spider-Man, and Ragnarok.
Yes, dude. Oh my God. Right. And so for me, this movie is cute. It's cute. It's sweet. It has a lot of love. It is a nice send off for Hugh Jackman, but like, I don't know, man. He gets killed by a tree. I'm like, you know what I mean? He's the Wolverine and he gets killed by a tree. So like the comic nerd in me just couldn't accept this movie for what it was.
My critique is he does like, they do sneak in the adamantium poisoning thing like very late in that movie. Like very late. And that's how, I mean, obviously that's how they justify he dies, but it's like, oh, you're kind of doing fine like a day ago.
Yeah, I mean they're showing the claws are coming out slower and stuff like that at the beginning of the movie, and
he's like actually wearing bandages and stuff like that because his healing factor is a lot slower than it was because of the poisoning.
I do want to point out, just as a weird note to the people who were, when I did the explanation about Deadpool's powers and compared to Wolverine a few weeks ago, and everybody had to come back and say, well, actually, Deadpool's healing factor is way better because he's constantly fighting cancer. I'm like, where was nobody mentioning the fact that Wolverine's constantly battling, adamantium poisoning? So I kind of feel like they're moot, right? Like let's just be real. Wolverine heals better than Deadpool. That's just how it goes. It's okay. Nobody has to be hurt by that. It's fine. Cool. Deadpool's still cool.
Well,
and I always tell people Deadpool is a cool character, but he has what I like to call like the Boba Fett syndrome, that he's only as powerful as the fans make him out to be, and his source of power comes from the fan base, so
it's true.
He blew up in popularity, and that's why he blew up in the scale. But the original creators didn't intend for this to be the point. They were trying to make fun of the DC character, Slade,
Deathstroke.
Yeah. And then with Boba Fett, it's like he was if he was meant to be a badass character, they wouldn't have killed him off the way they did, by Han Solo poking his jetpack and fun in the Sarlacc pit.
Once those toys started selling, they're like, oh shit, we got to bring him back.
But I will say that Deadpool has had the benefit of having a steward as faithful as Ryan Reynolds to keep it going and keep it relevant. So I'm fine with Deadpool as long as it's good. You know what I mean? But like, the second we get a bad Deadpool movie, I'm turning on him. I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
So hindsight is 2020, right? So I'm throw this at you both. We are getting another movie with Wolverine in it later this summer. What else do you guys need to see from a Hugh Jackman Wolverine to be satisfied?
I will cry this time because this, for me, I believe this needs to be the last one. Like that, like I think maybe part of me didn't believe that Logan really was or something. I don't know.
Well, because they're taking that factor that you talked about that you felt was kind of missing from Logan, was that the pressure wasn't necessarily on him because he didn't kill the X-Men. But from based off of the trailers and what we've seen so far with Deadpool 3, it looks like this Wolverine did fail the X-Men and they're all dead because of him.
Yeah.
So he has more of like anguish and pain built up. So hopefully we get to see that coming out in Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
Do you want it to
Yeah.
end in Deadpool 3, or do we?
Hugh Jackman as Wolverine? Yes. I think he needs
Yes.
to.
Secret
after this movie-
Wars, another year or two. We got a
No,
sequel movie coming
I don't like I don't
I
want,
agree. Let it be the sunset.
I don't want fan service for the sake of fan service. I want it to
Mhm.
always serve the plot. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm kind of not excited about Secret Wars yet because of things like when you say that, you're not the only person that says stuff like that. Like lots of people have a wish list of the eye candy they want to see, but I don't want Secret Wars to be Ready Player One. Like I think Ready Player One is the most shallow story ever because it's just like, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. You know what I mean? But it's not really, it's not about anything. And I think for me, like, I think ever since X2, the X-Men movies have slowly started forgetting what they're about. So like this one is at least about something, right? It's about Wolverine's legacy coming to an end, and it's possibly a new beginning because of Laura, you know. So that's cool. At least it's about something. But a week before that, I watched Age of Apocalypse or Apocalypse. They got rid of the Age of part. That movie ain't about shit, and it's terrible.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
God.
So like that makes it harder for me to be sad about this because there's so many misses in this franchise that I'm like, that's why when I was watching this movie, I'm like, please just let it end. Just let it end. I just want it to be done, you know? So but I get it. I respect that there's a lot of people out there that, you know, like grew up with this being their Wolverine, like, you know, and that's a powerful thing, right? You know, like
Everyone grew up with this. This is the only Wolverine.
I didn't grow up with him. I grew up with Cal Dodd Wolverine, all right?
Okay.
That's my Wolverine.
Live action Wolverine.
See, but I don't draw the line there. Like that's where you and I differ.
Well,
Like,
even when
to
the
me,
original X-Men came out, people kind of forget that X-Men 1 and kind of X-Men 2, people weren't all crazy about Hugh Jackman yet as Wolverine because they were like,
Yeah.
he didn't fit the description. He's too tall. He's this. So it took a while for people to warm up to him.
but also when you read an X-Men comic, it's not all about Wolverine too. Like that's the other thing to remember. And when you watch the cartoons too, Wolverine is not main character in that story. You know what I mean? Like it's an ensemble. And so I think that like it made it hard for me to like, look, I love those movies because back in the day in the 2000s, we were taking the best of what we could get because we didn't trust Hollywood to give us what we deserve. We were like, that's pretty good. I mean, yeah, Wolverine's in like a little too much of it, but it's pretty good. But like
Daredevil, pretty good.
But by fast forward to 2017, I'm like, I no longer need to accept pretty good. I now know that I can have excellent, and that's the heart of my sadness with this movie, you know. So I totally love that you guys love this movie, and I totally understand that I broke your heart by starting off the way I did, but this franchise broke my heart, you know. So, but I sadly I do think we got to wrap things up soon. So if you got anything else, go for it, Ricky or Abel.
No, I think that'll do it, guys. I mean, stay tuned. Next week, what do we got? It is what's next? Deadpool 2. Deadpool 2. We're talking about Deadpool 2. And slowly, like we mentioned earlier, working our way up to eventually watch Deadpool 3. But thank you, Abel. I am very happy we had you on the show.
I am too.
This turned out much better than I thought it was going to be. Like you are
you're coming back. You're
coming back strong, man. Oh yeah.
All right.
But with that, true believers, thanks for joining us. Enough said.